Hi, and welcome to another episode of the Cover Zero podcast, the show where I cover the least in the best way possible. I'm your host, Jason Wells. Today is July 17th, and it has started. Players have started to report to training camps, mainly the rookies right now, and by the end of the week, training camp will be fully here, or maybe it's just the start of next week. Either way, training camp is already here, another step closer to the start of the season. And yeah, this episode, continuing the Hall of Very Good, getting into some skill position players. We're going wide receivers, we're going running backs. And as always, we'll start with the NFL weekly update. Anything else to really update a ton? No, I don't think so. So let's just get right into the NFL weekly update. Again, not a lot has happened over the past week, but we do have a couple key stories to hit on here. Starting off with something that just broke and isn't really breaking news, but Brandon Ayuk has officially requested a trade off the 49ers. Now, what does this mean? It means, a team like the Steelers who need a second wide receiver, or maybe they're interested, the Commanders with his old boy Jaden Daniels, who allegedly sending him some practice film, maybe the Giants who could use another receiver. There's a lot of possibilities right now, and I can tell you with certainty, for a fact, he's not going anywhere. He is playing out this contract on the Niners. He has no leverage. He will sign the tag, and maybe the relationship is broken, and if they want to extend him to a massive deal at the end of next season, they still can. But he's staying a Niner. I don't know why the Niners would trade him away at this point and just kind of hope that Ricky Pearsall can be that guy. And Ayuk is one of the best receivers in the league. I think definitively a top 10 guy, and for the Niners, who are a Super Bowl contending team, they are running it back with that same core of players that I think a lot of people, including myself, did not think that they would be able to run it back with, but here we are. And if anything, they've added to those weapons on that team. Backup tight end, they got Logan Thomas now. Wide receiver 3 and 4, Jawan Jennings, they kept him. Great. Now they got Ricky Pearsall too. For running backs, they drafted Isaac Guerendo, who's a big bruising speedster. Very, very fast man. They got better at the skill position areas. It's still a very good team. I could honestly say they got better on defense too. Yeah, Brandon Ayuk not going anywhere despite wanting off the team. He will be happy with the Niners. He will get fed the ball with the Niners. He is staying a Niner. Next note up, and hate to do this in back-to-back weeks, but another sad passing away in the NFL. Ravens legend Jacoby Jones, dead at 40. Awful. And he's one of the first players when I really started watching football where I love Jacoby Jones. He was the best returner in the league for quite some time, just electric. And the Ravens Super Bowl run does not happen without Jacoby Jones. He was instrumental in that game against, I think, the divisional game against the Broncos. He caught that long touchdown pass to bring it to overtime. And then in the Super Bowl, he started the second half off with a deep kick return for a touchdown, and just a legend. And it sucks seeing that a few weeks ago he was at OTAs and he was chirping some of the young Ravens with a smile on his face, and now a couple weeks later he's gone. Very, very sad. I guess I wish his family and friends the best. A lot of good stories came out about him over the weekend, or over the week too. But yeah, rest in peace, Jacoby Jones. And final note here, Jordan Addison, almost a year to the date after his reckless driving charge where he was going 140 miles per hour, he got a DUI. He fell asleep behind the wheel in the left lane on a highway in front of the LAX airport. And less than a week after his teammate Kyrie Jackson died in a DUI accident, the DUI happening on in the other person's car there. Shameless, and that's like two big strikes now where it's like, okay, the reckless driving, like, slow it down, sure. No excuses for DUIs, and especially 1 week after your teammate had his life taken away because of that. I hope Jordan Addison gets it on track. I don't know why. I don't know. Again, when you have that amount of money as a rookie, there's just no need to drive behind the wheel if you've had anything, especially if you're like, oh, I'm about to fall asleep behind the wheel. Like, absolutely brutal. Just sad. It pisses me off that he would do that, but yeah, Jordan Addison, you got to figure it out. Like, come on. Let's get into the Hall of Very Good now. Wide receivers and running backs. We'll start off with the wide receivers here. So the nominees for this year's class, we have Wes Welker, Des Bryant, Muhsin Muhammad, Julian Edelman, Jordy Nelson, Santana Moss, and T.Y. Hilton. Let's start out the top here with Wes Welker. 12-year career, mainly with the Patriots. Finished it off with the Broncos. And I say mainly with the Patriots. Like, I think it was like Chargers, Dolphins for a couple years. Patriots is where he blew up. Went to the Broncos. I think 1 year ended at the Rams. But 12-year career. 2-time first-team All-Pro. 2-time second-team All-Pro. 5-time Pro Bowler. 3-time NFL receptions leader in 07, 09, and 2011. He loved those odd years. And just sadly, never a Super Bowl champion. He lost 2 Super Bowls to both of those Giants teams in 07 and 2011, then went to the Broncos and would have lost with the Broncos against the Seahawks, where they got absolutely slaughtered. But Wes Welker was the best slot receiver in the NFL for quite some time, and I mentioned he led the NFL in receptions for 3 years. All of those over 100. I think he's finished top 10, top 10 for like catches in a season. Close to 1,000 catches in his career, despite it being kind of an injury-shortened one. Wes Welker was one of the best to do it. It's just unfortunate that those great teams that he was on never got to a Super Bowl. Next man up here, we have Des Bryant, 11-year career, mainly with the Cowboys, and I think it was like 1 year with the Ravens, and then that was that. First-team All-Pro once, 5-time Pro Bowler. Honestly, I was a little shocked going back and looking, because like I remember Des Bryant. Des Bryant was an absolute stud, and I know that injuries did shorten his career. I think it was he had a tryout with the Saints, and then he tore his Achilles after like coming back from a torn Achilles, and that was basically it. He was very good for a short amount of time. I think he had like a 3-year peak where he was like, oh, Des Bryant, top 5 receiver in the NFL, throw up the X for the touchdown. Trash talker, very, very vocal, but loved what he did or loved what he does and wanted to win, and that's just a passionate man on the field. Des Bryant just excellent for those few year stretches there. Up next, we have Muhsin Muhammad, Carolina Panthers legend, Bears for a few year stretch, went back to the Panthers. So this is someone who I had to learn definitely a lot more about. 14-year career, though. First team All-Pro, 2-time Pro Bowler, over 11,000 yards, led the league in yards and TDs in 04, and led in receptions in 2000. And that 04 season is the one I kind of want to talk about. That is the one where the Panthers made it to the Super Bowl that year, and no Steve Smith. Steve Smith was injured, and Muhsin Muhammad was like, okay, like I'll step up, and he stepped up in a big way. A few years older than Steve Smith, and he was the vet, and that duo was phenomenal. They became very good friends, and Muhammad, or Moose, which was his nickname, he was Steve Smith's mentor for a lot of those Panthers years where they were together. Great hands, great blocker down the field, loved to block, tried to get Steve Smith involved in that. Steve Smith said, hell nah. Eventually he took to it, but yeah, was a very, very good receiver. Next up here, we have Julian Edelman, 12-year career, and it really just comes down to 3-time Super Bowl champ, Super Bowl MVP. Season stats weren't really his thing, but come the playoff time, he was one of the best receivers to do it. He was breaking some of Jerry Rice's playoff records, which that just doesn't happen. And that Super Bowl MVP against Atlanta, we all remember that insane catch where he catches it like an inch off the ground again, double catches it. Jules was terrific, and this is kind of what the Hall of Very Good is for, because someone who's like not even close to making the Hall of Fame, in my opinion. A lot of Patriots fans have different opinions on that, but Jules is excellent and deserves to be recognized, like 3-time Super Bowl and a Super Bowl MVP. That is fantastic. Next man up here, we have Jordy Nelson, 11-year career, Super Bowl champ, second-team All-Pro, one-time Pro Bowler, comeback player of the year, and was the TD leader in 2016. Aaron Rodgers, number one target for a long period of time, went from Donald Driver, and then Jordy Nelson kind of shot up, and then it was Nelson, Driver, and Cobb. Jordy Nelson was the precursor to Devontae Adams, and Devontae Adams just absolutely took off from there. But Jordy Nelson had his injury woes, and that's kind of like a lot of the guys in the Hall of Very Good, where injury shortened their career, where maybe it would have been a Hall of Fame career. But Julian Edelman had some injury concerns, but in the seasons where he was very healthy, he was easily one of the best receivers in the league. Next man up here, we have Santana Moss, 14-year career, second-team All-Pro, one-time Pro Bowler, over 10,000 yards receiving. And that's the thing, for the guys who I'm not mentioning, their yards or whatever, they didn't have more than 10,000, and I don't think that that's like a notable thing that I should really be saying, so I'm not. Santana Moss, though, over 10,000 yards, and over 10,000 yards with teams that weren't very good. Spent a lot of his career with the Jets, a lot of his career with Washington, and if you know those teams over this past century, haven't had good QB play whatsoever. Mark Sanchez might be their best guy out of the two teams. Kirk Cousins, I guess, but that's later. And he still finished with over 10,000 yards, a deep threat. Very good for just a long stretch of his career. I think he had like 7,000 yard seasons, which is unreal. And last wide receiver here, T.Y. Hilton, 11-year career, 4-time Pro Bowler, receiving yards leader in 2016. T.Y. was excellent, and he was Andrew Luck's number one target. They came in that same draft class, and they immediately had a connection. At the start of Luck's career, it was Reggie Wayne and then a young T.Y., and then T.Y. took over and, eventually led the league in yards in 2016, which is not a small feat. Again, injury-shortened career, and if Luck wouldn't have ever retired and had all those injury things, T.Y. would have had a much better career, you would assume, but that's just what happens in the NFL. It's tough. Okay, so the two nominees getting in are Wes Welker and Des Bryant. Congrats to those two. Wes Welker absolutely deserved. The Des Bryant one deserved, obviously, but when you look at some of the other guys' resumes here, his peak was insanely high, but longevity career wasn't there. But again, that's why we have the Hall of Very Good. Des Bryant at his peak absolutely deserves to be in there. Congrats to those two. Now, let's get on to the running backs. First things first, I'm pulling an audible again, like I did with the linebackers, where I put London Fletcher in instead of Lawrence Timmons. I'm doing the same thing. I had Jonathan Stewart on the ballot, and after looking through, I don't know why I put Jonathan Stewart on the ballot. There have been a ton of very good running backs, and especially in that 2000 to 2010 mark, and I haven't really focused on any of them. I focused on way too many modern guys, in my opinion, so out with Jonathan Stewart. Maybe he'll get in at some point. Doubt it. And in comes Sean Alexander. And I'll talk about Sean Alexander in a bit, though. But the nominees are Maurice Jones-Drew, Matt Forte, Arian Foster, Mark Ingram, Todd Gurley, Willis McGahee, and Sean Alexander. let's start off with MJD here. 9-year career, mainly with the Jags. Finished it with the Raiders, I believe. 2-time first-team All-Pro, second-team All-Pro, 3-time Pro Bowler. Was the rushing leader in 2011. Has a bunch of Jags running back records as well and franchise records. MJD was scary, mainly because the fact he was so strong and so quick at like 5'7" to 210. He was a bowling ball, and the issue with him was when he would get low and he would cut and he would go behind the offensive line, you could not see where he was going, and then boom, he'd be gone the other way. MJD was electric, and again, injuries shortened his career, but in his peak Jaguars days, absolutely unbelievable. Next man up here, we have Matt Forte, 10-year career, 2-time Pro Bowler, mainly with the Bears. Very, very good Bears running backs when they had like Jay Cutler and Brandon Marshall. Then he went over to the Jets, had some fairly productive years. But Matt Forte is one of those guys where he was just as good of a receiver as he was a running back. And we see guys like Christian McCaffrey today where they are absolutely elite at both, where Christian McCaffrey, future Hall of Famer, Matt Forte stepped down from that, very, very good at both. He had a 100-catch season. He's had 1,000-yard rushing season, like multiple 1,000-yard rushing seasons. He was a very good, well-rounded back. Next man up here, we have Arian Foster. Only an 8-year career, definitely cut short, mainly with the Texans, 1 year with the Dolphins, where I think he only played like 4 games. First team All-Pro once, second team All-Pro once, 4-time Pro Bowler, led the league in touchdowns in 2010 and 2011, and was the rushing yards leader in 2010. This is another guy where Arian Foster, he had like a 3-year peak with the Texans where he was the best running back in football, if not definitely top 3. And those Texans teams stunk. Those were like the Matt Schaub Texans teams where it would have been Matt Schaub throwing to like Andre Johnson and Arian Foster running the ball. And they were some fun teams. They weren't very good teams, but offensively they were good, and J.J. Watt would have been on defense. It would have been pretty decent teams. But Arian Foster, his peak, and again, injuries killed his career very quickly. But in his 3 years he was healthy, he was one of the best running backs in the NFL. We'll keep going. Next up, we have Mark Ingram, 12-year career, 3-time Pro Bowler, Heisman winner at Bama. He was drafted in the first round by the Saints. Went over to the Ravens, still productive, finished it back off with the Saints. And the thing you can just say about Mark Ingram, productive. Wasn't great or wasn't elite ever, but you knew exactly what you were getting from him each and every single week. Never had like the flashy, he had like a 1,600 or a 1,500 yard season, but every single year it was basically above the 800 yard mark. Wasn't a lot of flash or whatever to his game, but he was just an enjoyable player to watch for a long time, and longevity should be awarded at the running back position, and having a 12-year career at the running back position is absolutely crazy, especially the guy who I'm just about to talk about here. Todd Gurley, 6-year career. Only half of what Mark Ingram. So we'll move on. Todd Gurley, 6-year career, 2017 Offensive Player of the Year, 2015 Rookie of the Year, 2-time First Team All-Pro, 1-time Second Team All-Pro, 3-time Pro Bowler, 2-time touchdown leader in 17 and 18. And the worst thing about all of this, Todd Gurley is still only 29 years old. His knees are just destroyed at this point. It's very, very sad. But Todd Gurley, at his peak in those years, the best running back in football by quite a wide margin. I have his jersey hanging up in my closet, that ugly Rams yellow color rush jersey. I have that. It's actually one of my favorite jerseys now. Todd Gurley was special, and it started at Georgia, where he did have some bad knee injuries, carried it over to the NFL, and then he developed arthritis in his knees, and wasn't the same explosive player, and only a 6-year career, only 29 years old. Like, he should still be playing in the NFL, but his short 6 years, he had a tremendous career. Moving on, we have Willis McGahee, 11-year career, 2-time Pro Bowler. And this is kind of like an older version of Mark Ingram. Willis McGahee, very productive college running back. Had some major knee injuries there. Goes to the Bills, productive with the Bills. Goes to the Ravens, productive with the Ravens. Goes to the Broncos, productive with the Broncos. Basically, everywhere he was, he produced, no matter the situation, no matter the outcome. He was just rock steady, and he did it for a long time, and he was very good in college. And then, again, injuries, if they happen early in the start of the career, they will catch up to you at some point. And finally, the man who I already talked about here is Shaun Alexander. 9-year career, and boy, was it something. 2005 MVP and Offensive Player of the Year. First team All-Pro once, second team All-Pro once, 3-time Pro Bowler, 1-time scoring leader, 1-time rushing leader, 2-time TD leader, part of the 2000s All-Decade team, and he had 27 TDs in 1 year, which was a record at the time. And yeah, obviously that's why I couldn't omit Sean Taylor from the ballot. And again, injuries. He signed a massive deal after he had that 27 TD season, and then injuries happened, and they cut him 2 years later. He tries to finish it off with the Redskins. Didn't really amount to much, but just someone who had a knack of finding the end zone and wanted to get those extra yards to get into the end zone, and he did that. I think that the stat was on him that he had 70 rushing touchdowns over his first 5 years, which is like an NFL record by like quite a bit. And 27 touchdowns in a year is just absolutely insane. Like, I think Raheem Mostert had 20 rushing TDs this year. Shaun Alexander, 27 rushing, and he added 1 receiving just for a kicker there. So those are your nominees. And getting in, so I'm not going to do what I did with the linebackers and just be, I don't know why I forgot about Shaun Alexander. Shaun Alexander not getting in. Just scratch that one off, because this was a very close race. With the most votes overall, it was MJD, Maurice Jones-Drew. Congrats to getting into the Hall of Very Good. And it was a 3-way tie for second. Matt Forte with 5 votes, Arian Foster with 5 votes, and Todd Gurley with 5 votes. So as president of the Hall of Very Good, I will give the final verdict, and I am giving my vote for Todd Gurley because he is one of the most special, fun running backs I have seen. Not to say that Arian Foster and Matt Forte weren't special backs, but Todd Gurley was something different. And yeah, he gets into the Hall of Very Good. Shaun Alexander probably get in next year, but congrats to MJD, congrats to Todd Gurley, congrats to Wes Welker, congrats to Des Bryant on getting into the 2024 class of Hall of Very Good. Next week, QBs, tight ends, finishing it off, and it'll be the 2-year anniversary of me doing this. Very exciting things. Yeah, and happy to talk about some quarterbacks next week, because there's some very good ones to talk about. But as always, if you've enjoyed this, please like, share, retweet, subscribe, tell all your friends, and until next time, peace.